Hello, everyone. Welcome to Start Your Dungeons. I'm Adam,
I'm Bryce.
and today we're talking about Candela Obscura.
Right. So we're talking about Candela Obscura, which is the new Darrington Press release. If you guys don't know, Darrington Press is a publishing company that, from my understanding, splintered out of like the Critical Role group. For those who don't know, Critical Role has been a huge success over the last few years, helping push kind of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons into like the public limelight. So, but this is their first actual role playing game that they've made with their own system, and kind of not just a setting book. So different kind of take than normal. It's not Dungeons and Dragons for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, what comes in this book as a whole? As this is a core book and not a starter box.
Right. So this is a core book. This is the only thing that they have currently released for the game. I mean, this literally released. I don't know. We're recording in December. It was probably October time it released or November. And basically, it's all your rules for running the game. A large section on the setting, which I think is something they spent a lot of time developing. The rules are a little bit, I won't say bare bones, but they are very small in terms of how to run.
Streamlined.
Yeah, very, very sort of streamlined sort of process, not a whole lot to it. There's a little bit on the system, a little bit about how to run the game, and then I think there's 5 like short adventures to kind of help you get along and understand how their system works. Important thing to understand, there is no bestiary in this, because really there's no bestiary like monster kind of like stat block you can make for things. Everything is built around the players rolling,
Yeah.
similar to like Apocalypse World systems powered by the Apocalypse. So a lot of what it does is just get ideas for the game master to be able to run.
It's more like player versus the environment rather than player versus monster.
I think that's an important thing to understand about this system. Well, compared to a lot of others, this is not a combat heavy system.
Right.
We have played this the other day, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and Adam was a player. I was the game master for it. And definitely I would agree with that. I think this is a game built around your setting, your story, your sort of mystery aspect to it. I think
Atmosphere.
yeah, an atmosphere is a good word for it, and kind of an understanding of you're not running in just bashing monsters.
So, what about the quality?
I think it's a really nice book. So this book retails $40. I think
Which is low
Yeah.
on the core book side.
right. Their special edition is the normal 60, which is
Okay.
like I think it's a thicker bit of leather. It's actual leather with some gold print. I mean, this is just a nice quality book. I mean, if y'all can see, it's got beautiful kind of design to it. The paper quality is also like really nice. It comes with a lot of sketches and artwork in the book.
It has a lot of what looks like watercolor art. I don't know
Right.
if that is traditional watercolor painting or if it's digital watercolor, but
Yeah.
regardless, I mean, it's like I do a lot of watercolor art and it's pretty good quality.
Right. I think it definitely is a book that they spent some time and effort on. The pages look really nice. They all have like the symbol of the Candela Obscura kind of like circle with the C and the O kind of design on the edges and stuff. It feels very much like a book that was built for the actual like world, which I think is kind of a cool way to look at it. And there's
Yeah.
even little bits. I'll take some kind of like fun designs where there's note writing where literally they'll scratch out something as if this is like a handbook to the Candle Obscure. People will say
Yeah.
like, there's this part where they misspell something and they scratch it out and they go like, "Are you okay? You haven't been the same since we went on that mission in Peru or whatever." Like it's very
Yeah.
cool how they kind of have some fun with the book like that.
Is it easy to get into the game?
So I'll ask you. So I again was the game master when we ran this. You were a player. How easy did you feel it was for you to get in as a player when I handed you a sheet?
So when I first looked at the sheet, I didn't really know what I was looking at. It took us just a couple of minutes
Right.
to he explained the rules to us, and at first I was like, wait a minute, I'll have to see that in action. And there were 6 players at the table. We were all rolling dice within minutes, and there were very few questions at the table.
I think it is definitely a. We ran the quick start, which is available on the Darrington Press website, which I really enjoyed. I think that was a really good one. That kind of helped get people into the system. I think from a game master side of it, understanding just what stats that people need to roll is kind of your big thing, and that's kind of it. I will say that on the back end, this is a game master heavy system.
Mm-hmm.
There's no adventures for this really, besides the 5 in the back that you can run. There's no real there's a setting that you can place, but it's very open ended. So I think this is one of those games where if you're looking for an easy game to game master, the rule set is easy. Building your story may not be. And I think I struggled a little bit with the system and how to interact sometimes with when you guys did things. So there was a situation where some guards appeared and it became a little combat heavy, and it was hard to be like, well, what do I do in this situation? Because it's very much a system that's built around, it's a D6 pool, roll a D6 pool, see how many see what your best roll is, and that kind of determines things. And that really, I think, at times made it difficult, where it was like, okay, like, do I ask you to roll, or do I just let the role playing go ahead? And I think that was a little bit hard at times for me, at least, because it's again, you're, as a DM, you're not rolling dice. You know, you're just letting the players roll against different advantages.
What kinds of things do we like about the system?
Why don't you go first? What's something you like?
I mean, I like dice pool systems just overall. Especially because, you know, with dice pool systems, you can see what you have, and it feels more real than something like a single die mechanic.
And this system is, you roll a dual dice pool 1 to 3. If your highest dice is a 1 to 3, you fail. A 4 to 5 is a mixed success, and a 6 is a success, and 2 6s is a critical success.
And I will say this about the system: I never felt like I couldn't achieve something, like something was completely out of the realm of possibility, because I had the ability to try to boost things.
So you have this thing called drives in this game, and what you can do is you can spend them for one of your rolls in there, and for each one you spend, you get an additional die, and then other players can spend points from their drive to help you. And then you have what's called gilded dice, which are 2 of your rolls are special gilded rolls, and if you ever pick the gilded result, even if it's a lower than a better year result, you get a drive back. So there's ways to kind of like help build your dice pool, because when you play, if you don't have a point in a stat, you roll 2 and take the lowest, and you don't have a lot of points in all your stats. You're rolling like 1, maybe 2 dice a lot of times. So I really liked that system. Something I really love from this system that I really want to talk about is the scars system. So the way this game works is you do take damage. There's body, mind, and what's called bleed. And bleed is like the dimensional dark magic that kind of seeps through and harms your player from this other world. And when you take more than 3 of something, you gain a scar. Scars are kind of not the part that's important, though. It's what it does to your stats. So when you take a scar, you move a point in one of your stats to another one. And the best example is the one they give in the book, where they say, you get hurt in the leg. So you've got a damaged leg, now you walk with a limp. Well, you might change a point from your move stat to your perception-based stat, and I forget the exact name, so I apologize for that. And that's more of you like, okay, I can't move fast, so now I'm getting better at perceiving so I can get out of the way. Or you have less sense and more move because you don't really care so much. You're constantly moving because you know you're slow. I really like that.
It builds in the dynamic nature of characters.
It's very much a role-playing aspect driven into your character sheet, and I think that's a huge part of it. Another thing I'll comment on is nobody in here is a superhero.
Right.
Everyone is a human. Some of them have some magic in some ways where it's like, oh, I have like a special knife that can hurt spirits, or like I can do one little trick like a prestidigitation. But everyone's just kind of human, you know, and I think that makes it really interesting, this kind of tug and pull of like, oh, my character got wounded, but I want to switch it up and change how I play, sort of thing.
So what about the things that we don't like about the system?
I would say my biggest gripe is that I think it's a hard like system to DM.
Yeah.
In some ways. Even though it's an easy system, I really think that one of the biggest problems it has is there's so much rich lore in this, which is great. But it reminds me of, personally, and I'll give a side example to kind of explain how I feel. It's like playing a 40K game and you don't know the world with a bunch of people who play 40K. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't go like, oh, I want to do this. They're like, well, the Grand Primarch would never do that. Like, and I know some people don't get that, but that's what it feels like to
Yeah.
me, where you're playing a game and if you don't know all the stuff, I think you could struggle a bit. And you
Yeah.
can flip back and forth, but a lot of this book I think is built around everything's on the game master's shoulders. You're telling people what to roll. You're telling them how their successes work. It's not like hitting a target number. It's about what you roll and how that happens, which makes this kind of a hard book, I think, to be a game master for, just jumping right in.
Maybe if they released a player's guide PDF or something, because like Paizo does that for
Right.
all of their the adventure paths, where it's like, hey, you don't know about this particular part of the map yet. Here you go. You can make a character.
I
for
will say
that.
the quick start for this is excellent for that a little bit. It only tells you what you need to know about the world in regards to that setting, which was really helpful when we played. I didn't have to read this whole book. I just went through and said, all right, who from these like factions and areas do I need to know things about? And that was kind of nice. But it is a GM Ford book. More so than a lot of like other, I think, ones. And for a weird kind of sort of system that's a little bit different.
I will say, since we're on the system issue, how about your 2 cents on where the system comes from?
So this system is, I believe it's called the Illuminated Worlds role-playing game system. This system is really cool. However, I think that a lot of this system feels like it's pulling from games that already exist. One of which is Blades in the Dark. If you played Blades in the Dark, this system feels really similar, enough to where it's almost like tit for tat a little bit on it. Another one that strikes me on that is something like Vaesen, where it's again like a dice pool system. To me, it is its own system. But man, it feels like they took Monster of the Week, Vaesen, and Blades in the Dark and just made the best parts of that
collapsed them
into
together.
one system,
Yeah.
which isn't bad. But I can see there's been some comments online about it. I can see why, and they do acknowledge that Blades in the Dark is their biggest thing for the system and their biggest, influence on it, which is fine. But some part of me wonders if maybe this wouldn't have just been okay to just say, hey, like, we built a Blades in the Dark game with this world setting,
Yeah.
not needing to really go back and reinvent the wheel or pretend like you did in some ways.
Yeah.
Nothing against them, again, for the system. I think it's a good system, but it is weird how much it feels like a hodgepodge and a big chunk of like Blades in the Dark. And not every system's going to be different, but it just felt a little bit strange to be its own system.
So is this a complete game? Can you play this indefinitely?
Absolutely. This is all you need. So that's really nice. It's $40. You can keep playing. The character sheets are free online. I do like the character sheets. I want to shout that out. I do like the character sheets.
I'll say that too. I would agree. The character sheets were like, everything is really easy to find.
Oh, other really cool thing I like about this system. Talking about things I like. I love the gear idea.
Yeah.
The gear idea is really cool. So on this system is they give you a sheet with a bunch of different gear. You don't pre-plan your gear. You pick 3 items during a thing, which feels so good instead of like, man, like, not to bash swords and wizardry, but I hate when I go in something and then you're like, did you bring 50 feet of rope? And I'm like, God dang it, I didn't bring 50 feet of rope. Like,
I didn't bring a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, like, oh no, like, it sucks. But like, I enjoy that. And I feel like that is really good. We'll talk about like, if this is for newer players or whatnot. That feels very new player friendly.
Because it's like, the way that it works is if you don't have it, then suddenly you're just like, oh, well, I do. And then you mark it on your sheet as one of your 3 things that you
instead of keeping a track of like bunches of items and things, it makes sense, honestly. I like that.
And I've seen a few games that have done similar things, not exactly that thing, but similar things in the past. But that, I mean, I think specifically this game does that well.
Right.
So who is this book for? Is this for new players? Is it for seasoned RPG players? What do you think?
I think the rule set is great for new players who are not looking for something rules heavy. It is a little bit hard to be a game master for. Again, I will repeat that. I just think this game takes a lot to run.
So maybe not new game masters.
Right. I don't know about new game masters for this one. I think it's not bad though if you are new because it's such a simple system. You don't have to learn a lot. You don't have to lean on knowing a huge rule set. You lean more on having to know the setting.
Yeah.
Which might be nice. Again, pick up the quick start and try it. I really love the quick start for this. Could have done a review on it on its own. It was very, very good. Like kind of get into the game thing. But for seasoned players, I'm gonna be honest with you. This game may not be for you because part of me also talking about things it does. It kind of is just a side filler for a lot of other things. So if you really like Call of Cthulhu, Vaesen, and Monster of the Week, this might not do it for you because it plays in some ways similar. Our buddy Rob, who we have on, literally told me, like, he was like, I like this game, but I don't know where Vaesen doesn't do better in some ways. And I think
makes
it's
sense.
for each your own, definitely on that. But I do think it is for you if you want to try it. But the problem with it is if you have a bunch of games you're already playing in that role, this might be something you don't pick up.
Yeah.
Just because it already fills something you already love. Like, I love Monster of the Week. It's my favorite game of all time. This game is great, but like, I kind of can do this in Monster of the Week in some ways.
Might be good for the fluff.
I think it's a good setting book. That's actually a really good thing. If you wanted to buy this book and go, I love the setting, and then put it in Call of Cthulhu, put it in Monster of the Week, whatever, that's really good. And the good thing is, like, 50% of this book is fluff. It really is a lot about the system. So, like, that's
the setting.
Or the setting. So that's, like, really good for it.
So, as far as, like, would you... Like, if you were advising someone to try this game, we've had pros and cons. So as a player, would you advise someone to try this game?
I do think so. So I had a talk about this the other day with somebody, and I said, I think if you are someone who wants to get better at role playing, you should play Monster of the Week, or like a Powered by the Apocalypse game, and the other one I listed was Fabula Ultima, because I think, again, that's another great system. I think this follows a similar category, where if you're used to just chucking dice and D20 system and not doing... I like this system for getting you to role play. Again, we kind of focus a lot on those games, I feel like, because we enjoy the more role-playing aspect of this. This is a really good one for, as a player, you don't have to learn a lot of rules, but it's going to force you to really role play and get into that whole how your character behaves, because you're not a superhuman.
Right.
You're a regular person who has just got a little bit of something different about them.
Yeah. And like, and again, as a GM, just overall, would you recommend that to try as a GM?
Yeah, I would say so. I'm not against this book as terms of its setting. I actually think the setting is really cool because they did something I really like where they went to a setting that is predominantly steampunk and didn't steampunk it, which I really appreciate.
Good point. Yeah.
Because, man, I'm tired of steampunk. Like, I know people love it, but it's just one of those things where, like, a lot of these books that go back, because this is set kind of after the first, what they call World War I, basically, kind of alternate world. And there's magic and technology that's kind of mixed together, and I enjoy that. But it didn't go steampunk on it, which I really like.
There's so much that is either, so you run that whole spectrum of Victorian age steampunk to like all the way up to 1940s and 50s diesel punk stuff, and this one somehow avoids both of them.
It kind of fits its own niche, and I really appreciate it for that. And again, I think if you want to, as a GM, pick this up, no, you're going to have to invest time in it. And no, you're going to have to do a lot of the back end work on your own. But I don't think this is a bad book, especially if you really enjoy the what you see in the quick start and you don't already own a game that kind of fits that setting. This is a good one, and it's readily available too. $40 is not a bad pickup for you to pick up. And really, I would argue this is a interesting one where this is a GM only book. I almost feel like you players don't really need this book because you can just hand them the sheets and go through everything. It's not really like a lot of other systems where everyone needs a copy. It's very one copy for your group.
Well, if you've played it or have any questions, just list them down below. And until next time, have a good evening.
Y'all take care.
Bye.